And now I'd like to open the meeting to the sharing of testimonies of healing through Christian Science.
Thank you, Florence, Elizabeth, and for those Bible readings, and Lenny for the Science and Health readings. Thank you very much. When I hear those readings, I feel like the Bible statement, God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And those things that happen and the spirit that the early workers had then, I'm sure we could feel and have that same spirit here. That same gratitude that we have a chance to prove that God loves man and that he helps man in troubled times and in good times, and that there's nothing that cannot be fixed. The citation and lesson this week really helped me, because there are times I don't quite know what to do, but God does. And I'm working to get another position. And I was reading this statement: through discernment of the spiritual opposite of materiality, even the way through Christ's truth, man will reopen with the key of divine science the gates of paradise, which human beliefs have closed, and will find himself unfallen, upright, pure, and free, not needing to consult almanac for the probabilities either of his life or of the weather, not needing to study brainology to learn how much a man he is. And that so inspired me. But I said, I don't know how spiritual I am. Can I really discern the spiritual opposite of materiality, of matter? And I said, oh, sure I can. If Mrs. Eddy says I can do it, there's a way. And it's so simple. Matter claims to be all around us. And I looked around and I saw, matter's limiting. You can't put two things in the same place. And if you don't have enough space, it seems that everything is all mixed up and disorganized. So I looked around my house, my room, and I said, you're right. My office is pretty disorganized and mixed up. And I can make it, the opposite of that would be to have it organized. So simple. Organized and clear. And having what I need and only that. So I took the steps and I felt so much better. I felt encouraged that I was making progress, and I felt like I would know the right things to do because I was doing the right things. And it was a great day. But little steps like that mean something to me. I thank God for allowing us to be able to take steps in progress. And Mary Baker Eddy.
Thank you.
I also want to thank the two readers. It was wonderful to hear what they have to read. I think it's important for all of us to always reflect back to what God have done for us, to reflect back where we were and what we were doing when the grace of God found us. Mine was very gracious that it's impossible for me to forget. I owe God the gratitude. I owe this church gratitude as well. I remember when I first found this church, that was in 2006. My study about science and health was very limited because of where I was living that time. But 5 years after that, I think that was in 2001, that was when I was very serious about it. And that time I was living in another country, in Mauritania to be precise. I remember when I first bought my first science and health. It was like, when you were a little child, or when you were very young, I know all of us have, we imagine so many things. We imagine what could be, what this world would be like, what people would be like, what life would be like. And sometimes we grow up with these imaginations. I know some of us still do. I still imagine great things that God can do. But all of a sudden, you find out that this is not imagination. This is actually the truth. In 2001, I was holding a book in my hand that proved to me that none of these were actual imaginations. These are the truth. In fact, these are actually demonstrable. I can actually apply this. I was surprised. I know I have written a little bit about this, and I have shared some testimonies about this in the past, that my whole body and my whole hand were shaking. Because I never thought that I can come close to where I was that time. Apart from the Bible, I never read anything. No book ever written, even to this day, has come close to science and health. It changes the way I see things. I remember sharing my story with my roommate that time. I lent him the book. He couldn't read it because he thought it was too good to be true. But it's true. It's true. It's demonstrable. It's practical. I mean, it brought everything I was imagining as a child. It brought everything to light to me. That I can actually live these things. I can actually demonstrate these things. They're not that too hard for me. I mean, to some degree, I can demonstrate them a little bit as I can. It changes everything about me. And during that time, I was living in extreme condition. I mean extreme in every word you can imagine it. There was terror everywhere, fear, hatred, all around me that time, all over the country I was living in. And being a Christian in that situation was very extreme. But I didn't feel it a bit. Every single day, I felt like God was standing next to me. And I went through those conditions untouched by all these hurtful thoughts. I couldn't have done it by myself. It was God who did it for me. And I believe it was my attachment with God. He saved my life to this day. Everything that I asked for, healing came after that. I remember growing up, I used to bleed a lot from my nose. Sometimes I would wake up in the morning and my pillow would be soaked with blood, and I thought it was funny. And I wasn't the only person. I mean, there were some children I grew up with that had the same problem, and nothing much was done about it. And I grew up with that. It still happened even when I was growing up. But during this period, I was studying the science and health and Bible together. This condition disappeared. I just remember that today. How it happened, I didn't know, but I remember it was during this period that it just disappeared. It never came back, even till now. It's gone forever. That's part of the blessing that I received from discovering science and health and Christian Science, of course. I'm so grateful for this grace that found me, because I didn't actually look for it. It was this grace that found me. I'm grateful to God. I'm grateful to this church. I'm grateful to Mary Baker Eddy for what he has written and gave to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Shahidat from Maryland, go ahead.
There was recently an article in our local paper, the Washington Post, about how gratitude can have a positive effect on one's life. And I started thinking of how prior to coming to Plainfield, I was absolutely reluctant to give a testimony. See, I tend to speak pretty fast, and so I've always figured no one is going to understand me anyway, so why put myself through the humiliation and frustration? So week after week, I'd sit in church on Wednesday evenings, wanting to say something but not having the courage to say a word. It was an internal torture. This went on for years at every CS church I attended, and I've attended quite a few. No one ever commented on this until I came to Plainfield, and my practitioner said firmly but lovingly that if I was truly grateful, then I'd open my mouth and say so. I remember him saying that I could do all things through Christ. I had to pray for days for the courage to speak up. Excuse me. It's been an awakening and a slow process for me. I'm still a fast talker, but overall I feel more confident, and for that I am extremely grateful to God for bringing this wonderful church and independent Christian Science into my life. Thank you.
Thank you. The Moores from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. This is Tony Shotty. Thank you for that testimony. That was wonderful. So tonight I had to pick up my daughter from school, but we had 2 errands to run before we could make it home in time for church. And as I'm waiting for her to arrive where she needs to be, she's not there on time. And I could feel myself getting really irritated to the point of being mad, because I knew we had a lot of driving, 2 different stops to make. But I knew immediately when that feeling came in that this was absolutely error. This was absolutely an attack on me and my spiritual idea, my sense of Christ, my peace. And interestingly, I was able to rise up and throw it out. Now, in the past, I've not done it quite so quickly and forcibly, but this time I did. And I made myself get calm. I understood why I needed to be calm, why I needed to be this way in science. And within just a few minutes, my daughter showed up with her friends. We made the stops that we needed to make, and we made it back in time for church. And as I think through this, the readings tonight, the beautiful readings tonight, this was exactly what I was being asked to do. I was asked to agree with my adversary quickly. I didn't give it an inch. Had I given it power, had I accepted that anger and that irritation, I already know what the result would have been. I've lived through it, and it's not pretty. And I am so grateful that because I understand the truth now, and that I'm living it and practicing it as much as I possibly can, as soon as it came, I knew it wasn't real. Had I not been sharp, had I been asleep, it would have come over me, and there would have been a big fight. But instead, we had the harmony, which was the natural, and I'm so grateful for that. And those readings tonight really brought that out tonight. Just fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim from Arizona, go ahead. Okay, we don't hear you, Jim. You may be on mute where you are. Okay, we still don't hear you, Jim. We'll come back to you later. Linda from Pennsylvania, go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you very much for the beautiful readings this evening. A couple of months ago, while I was at work, a sudden and severe stomach condition came upon me. It was in the middle of the day, and I did not think I was going to be able to stay at work. On my break, I called my practitioner here at Plainfield and asked for help. She had been helping me with several challenges, one being a contentious work relations that were going on in my department. After hanging up, I was able to return and complete my day without further issue. Later that night, I was able to eat a normal meal without any problems. I am very grateful for all the love and support I get here at Plainfield and all the members. Thank you very much, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you. Elizabeth from Georgia, go ahead.
The sentence, agree with thine adversary quickly whilst thou art in the way with him, is something that always bothered me because I never understood it actually until this week when we were doing the readings. And it means acknowledging the error and then stamping it out right away. And this kind of goes along with the past 2 roundtables that we've had, which have helped me tremendously in understanding the modes of animal magnetism. The first week, a couple weeks ago, we talked about the bland denial of truth, and which in some ways is the most dangerous way animal magnetism might work, the indifference or inaction or apathy, because it's so subtle and takes over your thought without warning. And just over the past few days, whenever a thought has come to me, such as I'm not feeling God's presence or feeling down in any way, I have just recognized this as not my thought. It's foreign to me. It's animal magnetism working as my own thought. So it's just been so nice because I see that. And I've been aware of how it works, and I'm able to dispel it immediately. It's like it's not part of me. And also the fact that it's not person, place, or thing, and that the error goes back on itself has been a powerful thought for me because it impersonalizes the error, and it just takes it out of the personal realm, which is also so important, so it can be destroyed. So I'm very grateful for understanding this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Since I found this church, I have felt so much closer to God than I ever have in my life. And I'm learning more about Him every day. It's an ongoing thing. We're never going to know everything about God, but every day I'm seeing something more and understanding God better and loving Him more. And I was remembering the Good Friday is often a very heavy day, and it's kind of a black day for people. And I remember we discussed that at a class a while ago, several years ago in this church. And it was brought out that the way to handle it is to know that every day is God's day. And it's filled with God's love and with God's goodness. And that's what every day is about. And I was so grateful for that. I've never forgotten that. That made such a difference in my life. Every morning when I get up, I can know that this is God's day, and it's filled with good and nothing else. I'm just so grateful for this church and for all that I'm learning about God and all the healings that I've had as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Jean from Michigan, go ahead.
Thank you. Last Monday, I decided to make some tapioca pudding. The recipe called for a double boiler, and I remembered that I had given mine away some years ago. Instead, I put 2 Revere pots together, water in the lower one and pudding in the top one. The recipe said simmer 1 hour on low, and I did that. Then it said to add the eggs and sugar and stir until thickened, 15 minutes. When almost finished and it was thickening, I turned around and walked across the kitchen to get the vanilla to put in it. And bang, the 2 pans blew apart, and the hot, sticky pudding went across the stove, the floor, and the cupboards. But not one drop hit me. The lesson I learned that day was definitely from God. We talked at the round table about self-will being one of the worst errors of man. I can testify that it surely is. I knew when I began this cooking recipe I was asking for trouble. I knew the pans might get too hot, too much steam in time, but making the pudding seemed a lot more important. God taught me in no uncertain terms that I need to learn to listen to Him. In great love, He sent me away from the stove, and I wasn't hurt. But I will remember for a long time not to tempt error. I am so very grateful to to God for his protection that day. And I thank you all at Plainfield for the Bible lessons and the roundtables. They are very greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I gonna repeat any day. I used to testify before, and I gonna repeat any day I get up. I say, helps me God, dealing on ever come to me, because every day it's a little bit different situation. And by end of the day, like before go sleep, I sit in living room and I say, thanks God, the day goes smooth, no problem. And I say, thanks God, direct me fine. And I like to edit something. Last Thursday, in my home, the kitchen clock give up. And I go like night, I know the Target, they take care of nice clock. And this store is so huge. Then I like walk middle and look this side, not so much helps. And finally I see something like electronic. I turned around, I say, God, help me find the clock. And I look left at the clock on the side. Is it miracle? Thank you.
Thank you. Verna from Arizona, go ahead.
Yes, good evening. This is my busiest season at work, and this year I have really been pushing myself. I've been working 7 days a week and working with a sense of urgency, as I realize I don't have many working years left. In fact, I'm getting close to the end, and I'm the sole support of our household, which has really created a feeling of urgency. I just felt like the pressure to keep going when I didn't really feel like it. One day, a few days ago, I felt really, really sick, and there was some concern that it was my heart. I was so bone tired I just couldn't get up, and all I wanted to do was sleep. The next day I felt even worse and asked a practitioner from this church for help, and also described my symptoms and told her that I worried that it could be my heart. She reminded me that God is my life, not my heart, and to study Can the Heart Change in miscellaneous writing, and she continued to work for me. I did do that, and along with sleeping constantly. A day or so later, I realized I was in no condition to leave the house. I just couldn't, nor did I want to, even though I felt better. The next day, I felt even better and continued to study, and I realized that I had been forced to stop. I needed this lesson to realize human will was pushing me. I had not been making time for God. It was time for me to take care of me, to put God first, and to nourish my soul. Each day I'm getting better and feeling my energy return, and it was a lesson for me. I'm very, very grateful. Grateful for Christian Science, for Mrs. Eddy, who was inspired to write all these wonderful articles and books, and to my practitioner, who's devoted her life to working for God and for this church. Thank you.
Thank you. Fairley from Maryland, go ahead.
I would like to echo what others have said. I'm so grateful for all the teaching that goes on at Plainfield, the round tables and the Bible studies, the wonderful lesson sermons that are so accessible, that made such a tremendous impression on me when I first came a couple of years ago, because it was so different from what I tried to use in the regular church before that. And also for the ever available practitioner at Plainfield. It just makes my life work. And I also want to express gratitude for everything at Plainfield, for the website, and also for the forum, which is an opportunity to interact with fellow members and the practitioners. And a truth will come that way to me, which has not come some other way, or make a definite impression for something. And so that's yet another way, an opportunity that Plainfield offers us. So I just want to express all my gratitude and for all the wonderful readings that our fellow members are doing. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want to express my deep gratitude for God's direction with a recent computer problem. My emails seem to be coming in slower and slower, so I contacted my technician who checks my machine regularly, and he checked it remotely, and he said everything was okay, but that I should contact my email provider, which I did. And I was on the phone with this person for a little while, and he said that you have been hacked. So then he was going into give me a lot of information and things I really didn't know about, and I suddenly got a strong thought, call somebody, like our expert computer technician here at church. And it just came so strongly. So I just asked this person to hold on for just a minute, and I'll be right back. And I was able to get a hold of this person right away and was told this is a scam. And that's what God wanted me to hear. And I was so grateful I listened to that prompt, the call. So I thanked him, went back to the other technician, and I said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do anything right now. And I said, goodbye. And I just can't thank God enough for the message to contact somebody to get a real answer. And then also I called practitioner and was comforted with your identity cannot be taken, and that God provides new and better things every day, and to read the 91st Psalm. And that made me feel very calm and peaceful. I was grateful for that. But it's just that God was speaking to me, and we've learned here when He speaks, you answer, you listen, and do. And I did, and I'm just so grateful for God's great direction and for practitioner help. Thank you.
Thank you. Day from Maryland, go ahead.
Thank you. There are several reminders on the Plainfield website about the importance of loving, including this week's Bible quote and the article, Christian Science is Dynamic by Bicknell Young. In the short time that I've been learning through the teachings from Plainfield, I've come to understand that real love is unconditional, impersonal, and it leaves no room or excuse for selfishness. This has been a great help for me, and it has forced me to make consistent practice of questioning my motives in all that I do. I realize now that almost everything that I once did was either out of obligation, fear, guilt, one selfish reason or another, or in an effort to please someone. And this has all changed completely. I'm so grateful that no matter what I do, now I can always question my motives to make sure they're pure and sincere. The more that I do this, the easier it becomes to correct myself when necessary. And when I begin with love for God, I'm able to work with joy, and the result is always a blessing. I'm grateful for the opportunity to continue to do better as I love more each day. And I thank God for all the work that's going on here. And thank you so much for tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Chardell from Pennsylvania, go ahead.
Oh, thank you for everybody's testimonies, the reading, and ditto to everything. I have to tell you that something beautiful happened this morning, right before 10 o'clock, and I've been reading from last week, hymn 216, "O he who trusts in God's protection and hopes in him when fears alarm, is sheltered by his loving kindness, delivered by his mighty arm." That's a little bit of it. And I've been reading that, and I've been working with a practitioner about family issues. And this morning, I was riding with my grandson while he was going to work because I needed the car. And usually I turn and when I speak to him, and I was alert, and we've been told to be alert. And I was looking forward, and it was a good thing. A car stopped suddenly, and we were going quickly. And I was able to say something rather sharp, like stop, and we were totally safe. And I didn't feel like it was a miss. I knew that it was a protection. Everyone was safe. I didn't get upset. We went ahead. I did say that I was his angel this morning. Actually, there was another angel. And thank you so much for everything. I just am filled with gratitude and love. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Wendy from Georgia, go ahead.
Yes, I would like to express my sincerest gratitude for the help that I received recently from my Plainfield Christian Science practitioner. My daughter is currently in 8th grade in a private school, and where she would go to high school next year was not yet clear to us. Since she's always been blessed with an innate talent for art, the opportunity presented itself for her to audition to get admitted to the Savannah Arts Academy, which is a wonderful public high school here in Savannah which focuses on the arts. She applied and made it through the first round of entrance hurdles, but meeting both the grade and test score requirements, she was then required to submit an art portfolio as well as participate in an audition where she had to demonstrate her drawing ability by rendering 5 different objects within a 45-minute time period. Everyone kept telling us how competitive this process was, that many students would not make it in, and how difficult it was to get accepted. And I prayed for strength in keeping those limiting negative mental suggestions out of my thinking, doing my best to stand porter at the door of thought. But as the days progressed, as much as I tried to shut out those negative thoughts and feelings of anxiety, they appeared to keep creeping in, and fear seemed to become the order of the day. When I called my practitioner, she immediately directed me to specific pages to read in Science and Health, as well as to the article on the website entitled Place by Mary Baker Eddy, in which she says, "It is right for you to be with your own kind of people, and trusting him with all your heart will open the way. Remember, mind has infinite resources, so do not limit yourself in any way." My practitioner also helped me to more clearly understand that God has a purpose and a place for every one of his children, and no one can take that away from her or from anyone else. She helped to neutralize in my thought the idea they kept trying to take hold, which was that there were so many children competing for a very limited number of resources, and that there were only a limited amount of spots in the school. She also told me that all things are working together for good to them that love God, and that I can trust his plan, because nothing can oppose the power of a right idea. The third and final step in the acceptance process was for her school was the lottery. We were told all students who made it through steps 1 and 2 would be entered into a lottery and chosen at random. I immediately rejected the notion that a lottery would decide her path. The definition of a lottery is a process or thing whose success or outcome is governed by chance. I had to meet this strong suggestion of mortal mind head-on and know for certain that Alexia's path was not governed by chance at all, since as Christian scientists we know that God is omnipotent and there is no power besides God. I prayed every day for God's guidance and direction, and to make sure that it was not my will but thine be done. I am happy to report that we received an email stating that she had been accepted into the school. I'm so grateful to my practitioner for all her support throughout this process, And I thank God for his all-encompassing love for all his children. Thank you.
Thank you. Florence from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to give gratitude tonight for the progress that God has enabled me to make in my life since turning to Christian Science. I see clearly that in the beginning I was using Christian Science to make myself better, to make my life better, whether it's my business, my health, relationships, and so on. And I prayed really to fix the things outside. If it was the suggestion of luck, I was sending resumes here and there and not really listening to God's guidance. After so many disappointments and very brief successes, I finally understood that the purpose in turning to science was to find God, to understand him, to love him, serve him in the way that he wants me to, and in doing so, find my true self. This is the self that he created, he governs, he loves, and cannot be deprived of any needful thing, and is under his laws. So working consistently to gain a purer consciousness, I gradually could feel the presence of God. I felt more sure that he is here. My right place for right activity gradually became revealed. I gained more deeper peace, more improved health, and a steady supply for every need. This proved to me that it is a purer consciousness, the consciousness that doesn't tolerate animal magnetism suggestions, that can discern and experience the good God already has for all of his children. I thank God so much for everything, for even the difficult times, for Mrs. Eddy, for the teachings here, and all those teachings and writings that have helped change my life. And thank you so much for tonight's reading.
Thank you.